The views, information, and opinions expressed during the following program are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent the views of Access Communications, its representatives, or its employees.
Welcome to Planting Seeds, Philanthropy in Saskatchewan, a show where we aim to connect you to the donors and charities making an impact across the prairies. I'm your host, Victor Roman Morrow, with the South Sask Community Foundation. I hope you enjoy the show. Today I'm joined by Lisa Green, who's the Senior Vice President at the Hospitals of Regina Foundation. And she's here to honestly tell us all about what the foundation's about and give us, some insights into their workings. I know the audience probably will be most familiar with the home lottery that they do, I would imagine, as that's something that's widely around the community. And it would be really interesting to see more into that and what happens behind that. So thanks a lot for joining me today, Lisa.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm really honored to be here.
Good. Well, I'm glad you're here. So is there anything else you'd want to tell people maybe about your background, or do you just want to explain a bit about the Hospitals of Regina Foundation?
No. I'm a fundraising professional. I've been in the sector for 25 years. And I have to say, I think it's the best career in the world. It's just a fantastic opportunity to meet people and to help them achieve their goals, their philanthropic goals. So I love it. I've been with Hospitals of Regina Foundation for a little over 7 years. And it was established in 1987 by a group of volunteers as a way to fund the priority needs for Regina's hospitals. So right now that's the Regina General and Pasqua hospitals, as well as the Wascana Rehabilitation Center. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So within that, I guess, in a nutshell, that is what Hospitals of Regina Foundation does. Now, how does it go about fundraising and raising the awareness and communicating the needs of the foundation?
Right. Well, as you mentioned, our hospital home lottery has been around for the same amount of time, and it's very successful in our market. And we just launched the lottery publicly last week, and it was to great fanfare. The house is beautiful. It's a Ripplinger Homes built home, and so it was certainly a popular way of raising funds. So those ticket sales are ongoing and will be for the next little while. There's lots of advertising that comes around for deadlines in that. But on the other side of how we raise funds, so we are the grateful recipients of so much of the generosity from our Southern Saskatchewan community. And because our hospitals are tertiary care hospitals, so meaning sort of that specialized second or higher need care hospitals, the population that's impacted by them is all of Southern Saskatchewan. So really pretty much Davidson on down and to both borders on either side. So the catchment area for the hospitals is really significant.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting when you say that, because when you hear the name, you think Hospitals of Regina Foundation, but the reality is it does serve South Saskatchewan as a whole.
It does, yeah.
So I think that's really important to think about too. With that in mind, when you are doing the fundraising and things like that, are you most centralized focusing in Regina, or do you try to reach that broader population with your messaging?
So it's both. We're very respectful of the hospital foundations that exist in some of the smaller centers. But when we raise funding for programs such as our cardiac program or our children's cancer clinic, pediatrics, specialty care, we will talk to that Southern Saskatchewan community. And about 40% of our donors are from outside of Regina. So we get tremendous support from that group. We're currently raising funds for a cardiac need. We're investing $2.5 million to upgrade the catheterization lab at the Mosaic Heart Center. And we've uncovered that within the farming community, there's a significant rate of cardiac disease and death by heart attacks and heart failures. And so that's an area where we will talk to more rural communities about supporting that program. But
Oh, is that need something that's new, or how did that come about?
so there are 2 cath labs, catheterization labs, and we upgraded the last one in 2020, and then so we're now doing the second one. The interventional cardiologists do about 2,300 procedures a year, so lots of demand for that service, and so the fundraising initiative to raise that $2.5 million is new this year, and we anticipate that project will be wrapped up in relatively short order, and certainly the need is there to get it done quickly. So that's only one of a number of different fundraising needs that we have. But as a foundation, we focus on a number of. We try as best we can to have a very broad base of revenue sources. So you mentioned the lottery, that's one. But we also have a mail program where we mail our community and ask for gifts through the mail. We have monthly donors that give to us regularly, and we love them for that ongoing commitment. We also have people that make gifts, and we ask for people to make gifts through gifts in will and through their estates. So in addition to being very beneficial to them and their families from a tax benefit, it also, most people are able to give quite generously through their estate without impacting their families and loved ones. So it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, you mentioned that, the mailing list, and well, I mean, the home lottery is a whole thing in its own, but the mailing list and reaching out to people about their wills, things like that. I know there's a lot of work on the back end that goes on there. So like within the foundation, like what kind of workload is that? How many people are there actually working on this day to day?
Sure. Well, our foundation has grown over the last little while. We're now at 15. We are hiring for 3 new positions, so we're growing again.
Oh, nice.
So we're looking for someone in our legacy giving, someone to do database and stewardship, and a communications officer. So once this hiring happens, we'll be 18.
Oh, wow.
And we last year we raised just over $11 million. So anywhere between $11 and $13 million is where we're at. So we're busy. We work hard, but we couldn't do it without the generosity of our Southern Saskatchewan community. So it's really a tremendous partnership going forward.
Yeah, you answered my next question, was about how much do you fundraise in a year, and that is a significant amount. And when we talk about, well, maybe there's kind of 2 things really. You kind of hinted on some of the services that work towards. So when we look at that kind of $11 or $12 million being raised in 1 year, what are some of the programs that those are going towards, and how is that impacting individuals and families here?
Sure. Well, so we have the 2 tertiary care hospitals, Regina General and Pasqua, and between them they have cardiac, they have at the Regina General, there's a very robust pediatric program that includes a peds inpatient and outpatient unit, the Children's Cancer Clinic that we just opened a couple of years ago. There's our NICU and our Rolco Center for Mother-Baby Care, so everything from women coming in pregnant to going home with families. So there's that. There's also an adolescent mental health unit, inpatient unit, as well as a youth detox center. And then you're getting into things like dialysis unit and adult inpatient mental health, and of course the emergency rooms. And at Pasqua, that is typically, that is where most of the cancer services are. We have an inpatient cancer unit as well as our breast and prostate assessment centers. And then both hospitals have operating rooms and an interventional radiology suite, so minimally invasive operations as well. So lots of programming there. And then at the Wascana Rehabilitation Center, that is just the most amazing place. And the more I learn about it, the more impressed I am. They have a fabulous children's program. They have about 18,000 visits a year. There's also a long-term care / veterans unit for people who need long-term care. We recently invested in a hospice unit at the Wascana Rehabilitation Center, so for end-of-life care. But in between, there's all the rehabilitation and occupational therapy. and there are specialists that will create, they'll personalize wheelchair seats, and they'll create prosthetics, custom prosthetics for people who need to replace limbs. So
I have a friend who does that.
Oh,
actually.
really?
Yeah,
I find that just so fascinating.
Yeah.
Is your friend at Wascana?
Yeah, and it is really fascinating. I didn't even realize that was a thing until then. So
I know it's the scope of specialized care that's received in Regina's hospitals is really mind-boggling, and I learn something new every day that I interact with our healthcare partners.
Yeah, and I think that was the one thing. Like, I've interacted with the hospital, or the foundation, personally a few times, and then just I think our relationship from the community foundation to the Hospitals Foundation is kind of a peer-to-peer relationship, as well as there's some service to be done from our side, which is kind of neat. And even with that, when I asked you to come on and I was doing some digging, the amount of services alone that get touched they're overwhelming. And I didn't realize just the vast scope of it, but it is huge.
It is. It's certainly the largest healthcare delivery center in southern Saskatchewan, and it's incredibly integrated. When you think of everything from that acute, say, trauma care, all the way down to the end result of rehab and occupational therapy, and how do I get home after a traumatic accident and be able to adapt for say a loss of limb, right? It's that whole spectrum of care, and it's really a privilege to be able to support all those healthcare needs.
I want to talk a bit about the fundraising initiatives, because you mentioned that there's a diverse amount. The one that I know of, and I feel like a lot of the audience will probably resonate with, is probably the home lottery, because I feel like that's the loudest one.
Yeah.
What are the other ways, though, that people are getting involved? Because obviously there's wills and there's the mailing donations. Are there other ways that people kind of reach out and say, like, I want to be involved, how can I?
Yeah, for certain. We have many donors who give larger gifts, and they may give gifts of securities, or that is typically the way that it's done. But corporations support initiatives, and they promote their support to their employees. So we have a major gifts team that raises gifts that way. As we talked about, the legacy program that has a couple of staff there. We also are the very grateful beneficiaries of about 25 special events that are organized by members of the communities. So, for example, coming up in the next month or so, there is the Z99 Radiothon that supports the NICU. That's probably the one that many people in the community would know. There's also the snow pitch tournament put on by Pure Country. There's an evening in Greece, which is organized by the Greek community. And then there's Chinese Spring Festival, which is put on by the Chinese Freemasons of Canada Regina chapter. So those are just a few of the examples of special events. And often when community groups or a few individuals are looking to support, they often will set up a special event of some sort or other, and they're diverse from anywhere from, well, you heard snow pitch to a radiothon to a dinner gala. And everything in between. There's really some amazingly creative people that help us raise funds. And then on the foundation side, we have our own special event. It's called the Four Seasons Ball. So it is an elegant black tie event. It has it's gourmet 5-course, 6-course meal. And continuous entertainment. And this year each year we bring in a celebrity entertainer, and this year it's Rob Schneider.
Oh, wow.
So that should be a lot of fun and really interesting to see these celebrities, up close and in a very intimate gathering for a comedy set of about an hour. So it's a lot of fun.
The one thing that really strikes me is just, especially, actually, I've never been to that ball, but one of my colleagues has, and they were just like raving about just how well put together it was.
Oh, well, thank you.
And it was really like a Northern Star, I think, from them seeing that. So, like, I know from the little bit of fundraising that I've been involved in that it is a lot of work.
Yes.
And that it does take a lot of effort to kind of create something that's going to bring in the community in a way that's memorable, that's meaningful, that ties everything together. So when you're looking at an event like that, like, how do you make sure that for one, that it's something that people are going to want to be involved in, and then two, that they're going to leave with that kind of message of being inspired and understanding where their, in this case, where their ticket is actually going towards.
Right. Well, I think ultimately it's identifying what the event is going to support. In our case, the Four Seasons Ball supports pediatrics. And for us, it's really important that we have a strong pediatric program here in southern Saskatchewan, because while it's fabulous to have specialists spread across the province, if you need healthcare, you want it as close to home as you can get, right? So for us, that it was important that the Four Seasons Ball supports pediatrics. But then, it's important that you have a plan and that you know what it is you want your event to do. And I think also trying to perhaps differentiate yourself from other events in the market is another thing. And we have the night of the Four Seasons Ball, it's an all hands on deck. Every single staff person that we have has a role to play. And then we have some volunteers that help us with some of that. But on the setup side, we have community volunteers that come in and help us put out tablecloths and chair covers and programs. So it really takes a lot of people and a lot of commitment. And it just, I think having a plan of what you want it to look like and what you want it to support. We produce a video that illustrates, it's usually a patient, it's always a patient story, and it illustrates why it's important that we support our pediatric program. So for example, in this stories, we put our patient stories up on our website. And so, if anyone's interested, they could find the video that was shown that supported this. But it was about a family whose 9-month-old daughter, at 9 months, they discovered she had a grape-sized tumor in her head. And so she had surgery to have that removed. And then she needed 3 months of chemo at our inpatient unit at RGH. And then at 2, she had to have another surgery. And then she had to have regular monitoring for a couple of years through MRI to make sure that the tumor wasn't growing back, that they got it all. Telling that story helps people understand why their support is so important. And so that video is on our website, and Luna is now 6 and home and healthy, and her family is just very grateful for the care they received.
I'm glad for the end of that story.
Yes,
As a parent of young ones, anytime you insert yourself into a situation like that, it's hard not to just, want to be involved in part of the solution. So,
absolutely.
I have a quick question, but I want to make sure, because you mentioned your website. Do you mind telling the audience how to get there?
Absolutely. So the website is www.hrf.sk.ca. Perfect. And so we have lots of patient stories, lots of videos that are there. It really gives people a sense for what their support does and how much impact it has.
It's really interesting too, just on the topic of stories, and we talk about this a lot in our foundation, and we've talked about it with other guests here. Just storytelling is so important towards really just cutting through in the nonprofit sector, and it's one of the things that charitable organizations have a bit of a I don't want to say advantage over for-profit businesses, but there's like an authenticity to the storytelling that the people that are involved, the people that have been helped, there's just so much heart and there's so much care there that if you can capture those stories, that all it does, it just adds fuel to bring more and more people on board and to understand the cause and to think of their own personal situations and things like that. So when it comes to storytelling, like, how do you approach that in a year? How do you know what stories you're going to capture, or who you're going to reach out to, or do people reach out to you? Or?
It's a little bit of both. So we partner with our healthcare teams in the hospitals, and they will sometimes identify families who their way of expressing their gratitude was to share their stories because, as you say, they understand how impactful that is. And for our foundation, it is incredibly important that these stories, that all the pictures that we use, that they're real people.
Yeah.
They're not just images that we've downloaded from a website somewhere. So, but in terms of how we pick the stories, we always, because we have our Four Seasons Ball and a number of other event-related times of year, we always focus on pediatric stories. They tend to be inspirational to people, and they understand the impact.
Yeah.
We often have patients who are willing to tell their cardiac story, and in fact, our VP Finance is one of them. She, at 45, was rushed to the hospital with a heart issue and had to have 5 bypasses.
Oh, wow.
And she's just incredibly grateful for the care that she received, and now she's working for us and helping be part of those success stories. So. So we typically try and get stories that share a positive message. Someone's helped, they have a good experience, and that hopefully that inspires the community.
Absolutely, yeah. Those stories, as you mentioned, like they can be as personal as you have someone working there that lives and breathes that and knows exactly what it even feels like, and that's a whole other level of just being integrated into the cause itself.
That's right.
One thing that I found very interesting, kind of when I joined the nonprofit sector, and I used to work in advertising before, so I kind of understood it, but they really hit home the importance of when you're telling a story, telling an individual story has the most impact.
Yeah.
Because this is impacting thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people. But that number is so intangible. But when you get it down to just that personal story with a real name, with a real face, and you can relate to it, it just is so much more meaningful, I think, to people to bring them really on board. And like you said, to understand and buy into what impact it's making on people.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think it's easy to lose the individual in amongst hearing, that 2,300 cardiac interventions, right?
Yeah. You can't picture that.
No,
right?
you can't. You can't. And it's one thing to see someone and say, oh, this person had X or Y, and you can see yourself in them.
Yeah. And then once you see yourself in them, then that 23,000, then you relate to it.
That's right.
So
that's
just
right.
Kind of an interesting thought there. And we're gonna wind it up here pretty quickly. And I really appreciate the time here, but I wanted to know, maybe just let the audience know, how can they get involved? If someone's listening, if any of these stories are really pulling on them, or they've been thinking, I want to give back, and it sounds like there's a lot of ways, like how can people get involved?
Yeah. Well, certainly they can visit our website, and there's a way to donate on the website, or they can reach out to any one of the staff. We are all listed on the website, and have a conversation about what works best for you. We're happy to make your philanthropic dreams come true. So, and we love meeting people, so it would be an honor.
Great. And I just have a question too to kind of end it off just around, because you mentioned the legacy gifts. And obviously our community foundation is built on legacy giving. So what's an example maybe of how a legacy gift could work for your foundation?
Well, we're happy to talk to anyone individually or their financial advisor, but what we see the most is a gift in will. Either it's a percentage of the estate, or it's a specific gift. But if you're thinking a specific gift for something in particular, probably have a conversation first with our team, because we want to make sure that that we can deliver on it 10 or 15, 20 years in the future. So always happy to talk about it.
And here's one last question, just to kind of wrap that up, is there's a lot of unique ways that people can give.
Yeah.
Is there maybe one way that you can think of that people give that they might have no idea that they actually could have, that maybe you've seen a donation come in?
Yes. We have received donations of property, whether they're land or houses. And that's something that people don't think of, in particular, the land piece of it. And so it's, we don't hang on to that. We sell it, and then but that's an easy way to make a gift to our foundation and helps tremendously.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to thank you again for coming on today. I think there's a lot that the audience can take, especially from the fundraising world. And your experience in the fundraising world really is immense. And I know it's been appreciated within our community quite a bit. I think there was definitely a presentation that you gave on behalf of SSCF a couple of years ago.
Yes, that was fun.
Extend an extra thanks for. But again, thanks a lot for joining us here today and sharing a bit about the Hospitals of Regina Foundation. And I'm excited to see kind of where this goes.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed being here. Really appreciate the invitation.
Great. Have a great day, Lisa.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in today. If you'd like to learn how you can make an impact in your community, visit us online at sscf.ca or find us on social media on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, or Instagram. Have a good day.
If you'd like to share your feedback on the program you just watched, contact us today.